You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be talking about the absolute rollercoaster, the thriller, the greatest test match since West Indies beat Pakistan 2 days ago. It is of course the second test between England and India from the home of cricket, Lords. In a test of, the English summer so far, India finally managed to wrestle Daddy Roots cricket in Creche into submission on the fifth day, as they took a reasonably implausible 151-run victory, at least bearing in mind where the day started. We'll be getting into all of that in lots of detail in just a moment. But first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. Ross, 2 days boozing at Lords, followed by a 5 and a 6 in your recreational cricket. How are you feeling this Monday morning, or this Tuesday evening, sorry?
I reckon if I was to bat today, I might get a 7. So it was probably an improvement. I do think there is some correlation between some of the booze that I've drunk and my ability, but never mind. I also got vaccinated today, which is great news. So second dose. Hopefully I'll be fine against the old COVID variants, but go and get your vaccine, everybody.
And I'm joined by Max Rowe-Brown. Max, you selfishly let the team down yesterday by refusing to not do a solo live show. We'd have smashed all records, I think. People love nothing more than listening to our podcast after England lose. Why did you let the team down? What's wrong with you?
Well, I mean, you say I was being selfish, Jack. Actually, I think what you'll find is I was being very thoughtful for yours and Ross's actual future podcasting career by not stealing the show and allowing you to as much limelight as myself on covering such a momentous occasion. So if anything, you should be thanking me.
Very well played. Before we get into the cricket, Ross, we usually have some messages for our listeners. I'm assuming we have some messages for our listeners today.
None today, Jack. No. Absolutely fine. Oh no, we are sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. I am wearing their merch today, as you can see. Use the code TCP25 on all their gear. Get a new cricket bat. They are absolutely brilliant. The 5 and 6 I hit, but just don't worry about that. Let's put it under the carpet. And I think we've been loving this video. So like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and follow us on any podcast platform you're listening to this on.
Yeah, that absolutely do all of that. I got 36 at the weekend with my Woodstock, averaging over 60 this year. Averaged 30 last year, so I'm literally twice as good thanks to Woodstock Cricket. I should also remind all of our listeners, our viewers, that you can get more from the Cricket Podcast at patreon.com/the Cricket Pod, including a few exclusive posts, a hat, and the opportunity to meet us if you'd like to meet us.
Whoa! What? I didn't. That.
Max is auctioning off dinner with you. That's what he's going to do. And if you noticed, Max, that Jack is turning himself into a bit of a Twitter stat man now, which I'm liking his gradual evolution through the podcast. It's quite nice to see.
Well, that's fine. As long as he remembers my consultancy on the charts, that's all good.
People have started to say that we're a bit of a data pod, and I don't want to let them down.
Okay.
So I think they say that because of Dan Weston, but when he's not here, someone's got to do the hard yards, haven't they? Someone's got to play Daddy Root when Dan's not here. Max, do you want to summarise the test match that we just witnessed? Try and keep it to less than 8 hours. I know that'll be quite difficult, considering the myriad of twists and turns we experienced.
Well, we'll see how it goes. So I think a lot of people will have followed it quite closely and know largely what happened. So I've decided to go on a slightly less standard route of summarising the game, and I would kind of liken it to a seafaring voyage for England. So I mean, bear with me, but I think it works. So it started with the skipper making a bit of a tough call about whether to head out in gloomy weather. And it was a decision that quite quickly seemed pretty poor as his crew battled through an Indian storm for an entire day. But eventually they did find calmer seas, and the captain, not to be deterred, steered his ship to the safety of the shore with a peerless display of leadership. The fourth day of the trip even started with a bit of giddy excitement. But that was followed by a very sedate afternoon. And got us to a place where where we were wondering what the omens would have to say about the prospects for the 5th day of this particular voyage. No one could quite be sure what was going to happen, and any predictions that were offered were delivered with all the conviction of an English weather forecaster. But as it did happen, the English crew woke on day 5 to absolute disaster, because after gulping down too much seawater, the skipper had clearly succumbed to a salt-induced psychosis and was so distracted by the hallucinations and paranoia that he didn't actually spot the giant rock up ahead. And before you could say bowl at the fucking stumps, the English and their crew were completely shipwrecked and sank into the murky waters of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary, to be fair, Max, and it does capture the the tragic fate of Daddy Root and his seafaring cricketing crash, I reckon. Ross, I don't think we could have picked a worse day from the point of view of doing a live stream as cricketing creators, to have to play Camel Cricket Club for the 4th time this year, having beaten them 3 times. When you found out the result, at the halfway point, we just for clarity here, me and Ross, we went out to field. England needed to bat out 8 overs with 9 overs with 3 wickets in hand. Joss Buttler coming up on 100 balls. We came back together at 10 to, or we finished up our fielding at 10 to 7, and they've been bowled out with 7 overs still to be played. Ross, what was your initial reaction to the result?
I think I swore, and I was pretty disappointed. Really, I mean, it was embarrassing. There was over 1,000 runs scored in the first 3 innings, and England decided to just completely capitulate. It was really quite upsetting, I suppose. But I mean, there's so much to talk about here. I don't actually know where to start. Should we start with? Well, where do you want to start, Jack? Because I know.
Well, I know. I just want to gauge your initial reaction. I mean, it's some people are saying this is up there with the Gabba. It's one of the greatest wins of all time. How momentous did you feel it was, Max?
It's difficult from an English point of view because it just feels like a total, like Ross said, a total capitulation. I think there's a sense to be up there with the Gabba, that there has to be a little bit more of a sort of underdog kind of story to it, and sort of something that couldn't necessarily be stopped. Whereas in this case, you can't help but just pick holes in everything that happened from an England point of view. I mean, that's not to take away the fact that India bowled absolutely superbly for pretty much the entire 2 sessions of the final day, and Bumrah and Shami did something that was rather an underdog story. But for each of those points, you can't help but look at things that England did and go, that was absolutely atrocious, and probably 70% of why the result happened as it did.
India are also pretty good, and England are pretty bad. This is kind of like a first place team coming like, oh, they were 3-2 down with 10 minutes to go. We're kind of ahead, and then
they
Man United, whatever, and then they beat them. So it's not quite the Gabba, if I'm perfectly honest. I think that's a bit of an overreaction.
No, I mean it's interesting. I mean, looking at this from the England point of view, yeah, when Australia lost that test at the Gabba, it was shocking. It was like, how in the hell has that happened? I'm not actually that surprised. I have to be honest. Like, I thought this was an extremely likely thing to happen. I mean, going into the final day, India had probably a 25-30% chance of winning.
Well, you kept on bloody extending the odds, mate. You're the one on Twitter going.
No, later on. I mean, we'll talk about the England batting collapse. We'll definitely talk about the England batting collapse, because there was a point in the day when England should have drawn the match. But at the beginning of the day, it wasn't like, well, India winning in that fashion wasn't one of the possibilities that I'd ruled out. It was like, no, that's a reasonably likely thing that could happen here. And I think your point, Ross, like, this India team are really, really good. We've seen that they're really, really good because they've smashed England 3 times in India. They've smashed Australia in Australia without Kohli and without Bumrah in one or two of those matches. It's a really good team beating a really bad team. basically. But anyway, let's get into it in detail then. We should probably do this chronologically, shouldn't we? Let's start with the encouraging first 30 minutes from, I don't know. I mean, I actually don't really care that England lost. I have to be honest. I'm not. Sometimes I care whether England win or not. Sometimes I'm like, nah, that was just hilarious. This is definitely the second here. But for one of you two, I know who was actually really into England winning, maybe Max. England nabbed Pant and Sharma early in the morning to give them a good run at the tail. How optimistic were you at that point?
Yeah, I was. Well, actually, you know what? Having spoken to Dan the day before and how we'd been like, yeah, look, Pant holds the key to this. Half an hour of Pant. Well, if they can get India to 200, I'm making India favourites because, even 180, I think England might struggle with. Getting Pant, you were like, yes, we've really taken a great stride here to a positive result. But actually, there were a few things that made me change my mind a little bit. One of which was the fact that Pant actually didn't really play like Pant as much as I expected him to. I think he came down to Jimmy once and cracked him through the covers, but the rest of it, he looked like he was maybe a little conscientious of the fact that he had to bat with a tail and was a little defensive. And I think that's probably what ended up with him getting in trouble. But I just had this nagging feeling that England were going to do exactly what they did last time when they couldn't get, was it in the first test, wasn't it? When they couldn't get Bumrah and Shami out. And you're just like, you got the feeling they were going to go hard at Bumrah's head because of what happened with Jimmy. And you kind of wondered whether it was going to be a case of them just flailing the bat and we might get a bit unlucky. But
do you know what I think about that? I think that was probably the dumbest passage of play I've ever seen in international cricket. Ross, where did you come down? I mean, no, hold on. After the fall of the Sharma wicket, Ross, we saw Bumrah stride to the crease. England, they decide to respect his elite level talent by placing 7 men on the boundary. In your opinion, was that a bit too positive from them? Surely the right play was 9.
Let's just be really clear on this. Bumrah averaged 2 before going into this test series. Bumrah is not a good batsman. Like there's no way around that kind of thing. Shami had averaged what was it 8 balls per dismissal in the last 10 tests or something that he'd played in. These are not good batsmen, and we've been just like, do you know what, lads? We've got Mahindra Singh Dhoni coming out to finish us off here. And been like, well, let's roll everyone. But it was madness. It was absolute madness. And there's a couple of things here. Like tailenders who bat at 9, 10 and 11 are 9, 10 and 11 for a reason. They're typically not very good. In Test cricket, people who average less than 10 do so for a reason. They're not good against Test level bowling. Root has come out and admitted that he's got this kind of tactically wrong, which is obviously evident. But there was a collective kind of group think going on where not one person in the England setup, and it's not like you can't get a message from the field. Chris Silverwood could have held up a piece of paper going, what the fuck are you doing? And that would then would be like, Morgan would be like, it's genius. Nathan Lemon again, brilliant. It's just this stuff is just infuriating. And I think England only have themselves to blame. Max, on your on the WhatsApp group that we're in, you messaged that I would really like to see Wood come out and hit Bumrah in the head, which is what cricket's all about, isn't it?
He did that once, and then all he needed to do was do the rest. But
this is what I didn't understand. Like, I can get that you can get riled up, and I think we can come on to the mind games bit in a minute. But when you've got Bumrah, who is like a genuine number 11. Hit him on the head once and then just pitch it up. That's all you have to do. And the field setting isn't even that hard. Like, yes, they might get to 200 if they flail, but Joe Root can turn around and go, look, we're trying to take wickets. He just almost let them get to 250.
They weren't even flailing. They were like, I'm going to block that one into the offside, jog through for a single.
I'll take a single because there's no one there. It was insane.
Yeah, so in those bits that you have enough people on the field. England weren't so injury depleted that we didn't have enough people to come on the field. Paul Collingwood could have stuck his whites on, worst case scenario. But put a couple of fielders out on the boundary, fine. Put a fly slip third man in for one that kind of they try to hit over the top and just get lucky with, but then falls into
What-
themselves and then bowl at the stumps.
What winds
Simple.
me up so much about this is the fact that this isn't the first time, is it? England do this a lot. We've seen
Yeah.
it so many times and fail to get the tail and just make the wrong plans. You'd think after a while they'd be like, okay, here comes 9, 10, 11, and we know what stage of the game we're at, so we know exactly what they're going to do. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have a fly slip in from the first ball because I know exactly what's going to happen and where the ball's going to go. And the one of the things that sort of made me a little nervous about the fact that they might have a bit of a tail wag was that I thought Mark Wood probably wasn't going to bowl because he obviously started the day off the pitch with Zach Crawley on, and he hurt his shoulder the day before with a bit of fielding. And I thought, oh well, there's a possibility here that, you know, with Jimmy mid 80s and Robinson low 80s and Curran high 70s, that they might actually be able to do something. So when Wood was able to bowl and was bowling quick as well, I thought, great, we'll be all right. He can come and bowl at the stumps fast. No.
Well, I
no,
do. Pant got out. No, sorry, Jack, but Pant got out to a good delivery. Pant got out to like, if it's good enough to get Pant out, it's going to be good enough to get these idiots out.
I mean, like, just to drive home how dumb this was. The two of them, they managed to score 90 runs between them. 48 of them weren't boundaries. They like Bumrah's got 22 of his 34, knocking the nerdling. You've let Bumrah nerdle at 34. I mean, if he'd hit 4 sixes, you'd be like, look, you know, every dog is going to have their day. But he didn't.
Yeah, they just let him get runs. This is the bit we'll get people saying, like, I'll probably take back my idiot comment because they're clearly not idiots. But like when it comes to batting ability, they are so far down where they should be in terms of like this. Like, it is very frustrating.
I mean, yeah, Bumrah, people have been saying Bumrah's been working on his batting. If Bumrah is 4 times better than he was at the beginning of this series now with the bat, which would be a remarkable improvement, his average would be 10. His career average would be 10. Let that, and he's got 34. Chancellor's 34 against James Anderson at Lords. James Anderson would at Lords. It was the dumbest passage of play I think I've ever seen. And what was particularly dumb about it, though, I mean, if I'm honest, I think this has a relatively minimal effect on the outcome of the match versus most of the other things that happened. I don't really buy into momentum being a big thing in Test cricket. Some people do. If you do, you probably think this was a turning point. I didn't. I think the main reason that England lost this match is that they're worse at cricket than India. This is sort of just another manifestation of that.
I actually thought, in terms of turning points, I thought actually what it did was made England losing less likely.
Yes. No,
because
if
it forced
anything,
their hand. It meant
it got
that
to
we knew
about
they were
12
just going to
o'clock.
block. They didn't have to try and win the game.
It got to about 12 o'clock. The run rate went over 3 and over, and India should have declared then. They should have declared and bowled England for 50 minutes before lunch. As it happens, you know, England was so bad that they didn't matter. But that's what a good team would have. Like, that's what, you know, not a good team. I mean, obviously, India are a good team, but that's what really aggressive captaincy would have been. It wouldn't have been given 60 overs. So England would have been back for 70, and England would have lost before tea.
So should we talk about what caused it? Because Jack, we kind of talked about this before a little bit, but actually what caused it? Max, you mentioned that Bumrah's aggressiveness to Jimmy Anderson was kind of like the turning point in this game. Like, there's always a bit of niggle between these two teams because it's Test cricket, right? This is better for it. But Joe Root and his creche, as you're calling him,
Daddy
Jack.
Root.
Yeah, Daddy Root and his creche. They let it get the best of them big time, and it ultimately cost them in a really embarrassing way. And India, I'm not sure they're the masters of the dark arts, as they're not like a Jose Mourinho kind of circa 2002, whatever it is. But when Test cricket is played, getting any advantage over your opponents is critical. It's a game of pretty fine margins, and in this game, up until an hour into the final warning, it was a game of fine margins, right? India batted well. Joe Root managed to get us across the line and get a lead. It was a really good performance to kind of eke out the day on the fourth day with Rahane and Pujara. And so that nip and tuck is really important. But the mental side of the game is obviously so important. And I thought that they just demonstrated that they've got the wood over England to here. Like they channeled that passion, they channeled that aggression, they channeled kind of just the annoyance of the whole situation of like Ollie Robinson being a dickhead in the perfect way possible. I thought that the theatre of Kohli was actually quite funny, like the moaning, the arguing with the players, the pointing to the sky to come off a light the evening before, the selection smoke and mirrors. Like it's all part of it, and India are just better at doing that stuff, and it gets on England's nerves. I think it's hilarious.
Well, look, I mean, from the Indian point of view, I think there's a few things to unpack here. What is noticeable about this Indian side is that they've clearly taken a huge amount of inspiration in terms of how they play the game from the Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting era Australia. Like it's that how India play now is how that Australian team played. Now, is that, there's connotations involved with that because we know where that project went, in 2018. But that was a long time. There's a reasonably significant amount of time between what those two were doing and how it all unraveled with Sandpaper Gate years later. And I think if you want to win a lot, like if your main objective with your international side is to win as many games as possible, then that's a really good way of playing cricket. It means that everyone playing for your team's always going to be as up for it as they possibly can be. It's going to mean the other team are always going to feel under pressure, and sometimes you'll get an adverse reaction from the other side. I think on this particular occasion, it didn't make that much difference to the outcome of the game. And again, I think that's because England are a lot worse at cricket than India. I don't think the mental aspect had a huge role. Let's look at this Anderson point in a bit more detail, because people have lost their fucking shit over Anderson being hit in the head and hitting the ribs as though it was some kind of national tragedy. Basically, what happened was India executed the oldest trick in the book. They bowled a couple of back bumpers to a tail ender who didn't get forward and was bowled. Like it's what you were talking about earlier, Ross. Send one past the grill, bowl full, the tail ender will be out. Problem for England was that they didn't execute that plan. They didn't go full. They just kept bowling short. And they bowled short
because they lost their mind, right? Because of the Jimmy Anderson incident.
Yeah, they did bowl. They did bowl full once. They bowled full once, and it was after Bumrah actually got hit in the head, and there was a big break. And that was possibly the most telegraphed full delivery in the history of cricket. And I think they actually should have gone short again for that one, ironically.
I don't know how much mind games have got to do with this, to be honest. I think it's more again, England are a bad cricket team. Bad cricket teams make mistakes. England made a mistake. They didn't make, if these were two equally good sides and this happened, it would be like, yeah, okay, maybe they did get in their heads. But that's exactly the sort of thing that England do all the time. I mean, we saw in a friendly earlier this year at Lords, England was set, 2.7 and over 70 overs or something against New Zealand to win at the home of cricket, to kick off their summer in style. And they blocked out. It's an incredibly dumb, cowardly decision. They just made another one. It's how this team operate. They blunder from catastrophic mistake to catastrophic mistake. They've got nobody who's really in charge. They pick whoever they fucking fancy. They pick their mates, and there's no repercussions for doing that because there's nobody in charge. And the circus just continues. Like there's not. You can look. It was theatre. It was drama. It was fun to sort of watch it unfold. But basically, what we saw, and we'll go back to that point about I'm not that surprised by it or not that shocked. We saw a team that aren't very good get beaten by a team that are very good.
Yeah, I think also the point you make about like the Steve Waugh era, etc. Like, I think that it's rare that people like sides that win. That you don't see, like there's the odd fan that you talked around, and people kind of turn around, but everyone else is going to start to be like, oh, I don't really like India because they're now the best team, right? It always goes through cycles.
Yeah, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, everyone goes through those cycles. I do think in the English media, and I do think England fans, I think they really do have a problem that it's India that are good. Like,
100%.
And that's the big thing for me. I think it really, like, there was people talking about it at Lords, being just like, oh, there's so many India fans there, like they're so loud because it's really annoying that India are really enjoying this spectacle. It's just like, what are you talking about?
Ross, the thing is, the deal is with India, and the deal has always been that they come here, we smash them, we feel good about ourselves. We go there, we smash them, they smash us, they feel good about themselves. We both moan about each other's pitches. We like it when England play Australia or whatever, like everyone tunes into that, and when India play Australia, everyone tunes into that. That's the deal. India have broken the social contract that we had with their cricket team. They've turned up and they're trying to win, and people are upset by that because that's not what India is supposed to do. Yeah. It's supposed to be a bolt out of the blue, once in a generation performance. Swan and Panesar at their best. Everything went right for England. KP solved his problems with the England leadership for 6 weeks, and that they all came together, and you win. And we can talk about that for 50 years and make movies about it. It's not supposed to be. Kohli turns up, they play really intense cricket, they really want to win. England try and fight back and get stomped. Like it's not, and there's no recourse. There's not.
Well, this is why I really admired it. This is why I really admired it. So this is why I think the mental side does come into it, because England were under pressure. England did capitulate, and they capitulate for a reason. Yes, they are bad, but there is also the pressure that they were put underneath. But I loved the performance from India. I loved the arguments that they were having. I loved the passion for it. I loved Siraj. What I thought it caused was England capitulating, but because it happened so much faster than they actually realised. So teams, when they get into that bit, they start to fall apart, and before they realise what they're doing, it's too late. It's over.
Well, you're talking about the speed been bowled out in 60 overs 5 times this year or something.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the speed of the defeat. It was that is the I think it's the 5th quickest 4th innings England being bowled out since 1910. It was up there. It's the quickest India ever bowled England out in the 4th innings in England. I mean, it was like proper up there in terms of quick, bad, falling apart, embarrassing stuff.
I mean, all I would say on this mental thing, what I think it does do is it motivates the Indian players, and I think part of the reason for that though is that they'll lose their place if they don't hit that mark. That's what it does. It means that Siraj bowls 4 fired up spells a day. It means that Bumrah does exactly the same thing. It means that Shami and Bumrah will go out and they will battle as hard as possible, and they'll use their very limited talent as to the greatest possible extent, because that's the rules of engagement. If you're in that Indian side, I don't think it really has an effect on the opposition in the way that people think. It's a good narrative story.
It has
what basically it is it's a way of motivating your players, and it's you called the Mourinho playbook. We laugh at Kohli for how he handles IPL pressers, and we say he sounds like sad Mourinho. The flip side of that is that in the same tactics over 5 days, when you need to maintain that intensity, they can be quite good. I mean, I think if you're emotionally erratic in a T20, then that's bad. But if you're able to just be fiery for 5 whole days in a test match. Test matches are long, they're boring to play in them. We were talking about it when we were there on Friday. A lot of the time, you're just standing there waiting for your go, and don't tell me the professional cricketers are always up for that. You can see that they're bored.
Well, 40 overs gets boring enough.
You can see on Friday when we were there twice. Haseeb Hameed just forgot that he was supposed to come in for when there were 2 balls left in the over to stop Jadeja getting off strike. He just stood on the boundary and then started, and then they had to stop the game. That happened twice. One of those teams is focused, one of them isn't. It isn't because one of them's being bullied. It's because one of them are driven properly. One of them are at the peak of their game. One of them is a team full of elite players. One of them's bad. One of them's got a load of players that probably shouldn't be there. Make a list of pros and cons. All of the what would make a good team. the team with all the cons are England. The team with all the pros are India. India are miles better, and we just saw what happens when two good teams play.
I think
or
the
two teams
mental
play each other.
side, like people talk about the mental side, is I think it's as much as displacement on the England players from what they're feeling. Like our England team is poor and they're losing, and it gets annoying for the fan that India have got pulled the wool over their eyes and got on top of them, and some people moaning about Bumrah bouncing Anderson, and some people moaning about like Siraj giving people send off. Like, I'm afraid, guys, Jimmy Anderson and Ben Stokes don't have a monopoly on having a little chat at a batsman. I think it's entirely fine.
I couldn't agree more. And could you imagine how annoying it is for other people to play England and then someone to see Stuart Broad go, oh,
so here's a question then.
And it's just like,
then, if it makes a big difference, why doesn't it work when England do it?
Sometimes it does. I think it sometimes it does. We smashed Pakistan to bits.
Yeah, who are worse than us.
Yeah, and that's what they've done it. And that's what they've done it. That's what
classically mentally strong Pakistan cricket team.
But we have to also realise that England should already be 2-0 down in this series. If it wasn't for rain, we would have lost. So anyway, right, let's move away from the mental side of the game, because we're not Jeremy Snape. So
they should be 0-0. Like let's talk about the batting, because you've got. I think we talked about this on one of the live shows, maybe after the first day with John O'Max, and we said something along the lines of, if England could bat at all, they would draw this test.
Yeah,
we said that.
That is what we said. I mean, that was obviously in the spectre of the first innings.
Yes,
when Joe Root did bat,
was in the same game.
Danny Root.
England were left with a pretty easy equation. They could not win. They had 60 overs to bat. If they batted those 60 overs, it's 0-0 going to Headingley next week.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have been outplayed over the 5 days. They probably deserve to be 1-0 or 2-0 down, but they had the opportunity to convert a reasonably easy chance for a draw into a draw, and lost, I think, with 7.1 overs to go. It could be 6.1. I might have done my maths wrong. Max, you talked about how historically bad this was from an England point of view. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, you think it, for some reason, I guess you look at it, and I think possibly the way India bowled and the amount of pressure they put on, it kind of felt like England had a lot longer to survive than they actually did. But I mean, that's the point of, like, if you look at actually historically, England's fourth innings defeats batting in England, it's up there with some of the quickest. Like it was really bad. It was such a short amount of time in the context of a test match that they had to bat. And we're not talking either a game where the other team has Shane Warne and the pitch has completely broken up and the ball is spitting everywhere and there's no hope. We're talking about a game
They didn't even have Ashwin.
They didn't even have Ashwin. We're talking about a game where there was a danger for maybe 20 overs, and we did suffer in those 20 overs. And after 20 overs, the ball doesn't really do anything. There was variable bounce on the last couple of days. There was a bit more about it, but it was
not
still
that
a
much,
case.
so is it?
It was still a case of, if you bat properly and block the straight ones and leave the ones outside off stump, you will make it, and you will make it fairly comfortably. And we just literally couldn't do it because we're not good enough.
Max, I agree with you. There was absolutely no demons in that pitch. There's nothing to blame on the pitch. There's nothing to blame on the ball. There was over 1,000 runs scored in the first 3 innings. Like, I was there for 2 days. It was a flat deck. Like, if there was Johnny Bairstow hit a 50 and it didn't break
Shami
sweat.
hit a 50.
Yeah, and it was just like, what? How did this happen?
Shami hit a 50 on the same day.
Yeah, there was no prodigious turn. There's no one that can be blamed other than the England batsmen, and congratulations have to go to the Indian bowlers. So,
I think, what I would say is, like, the Indian bowlers did everything they could to make it as difficult for England as possible. In other words, they were really good because they are really good. But like,
they did their job. They did their job as a test level bowling attack. Like, it's a good bowling attack. Like, I think their 4 seamers all have an average of less than 26. Like, that's a pretty good bowling lineup to have going into, especially in England or going anywhere. But if we talk about England's batting, I mean, the 2 openers now have recorded 10 ducks by themselves in 2021.
Whoa, 9 ducks.
Okay, all right. Well, I thought it was 10. My calculations say it's 10. We've also recorded 39 ducks in 2021 already. Like we said seven ducks in this test match. That is the most. That's the most.
2 entire test matches of ducks.
Yeah, it's incredible. 7 ducks in this test match, as I was saying. That's the most ever against India, beating England's record of 6 ducks in the Ahmedabad sandpit earlier in the year. So, like, we're not covering ourselves in any glory whatsoever, are we? Like, Jack, when you talk about what England are bad, but this is a whole new level of people just bottling it, just completely bottling it.
I don't know. I just think it's well on the spectrum of things that could have happened. Like England, this team are bad, right? I mean, like maybe I thought it could have happened, and I wasn't surprised. But I do think we should labour the point about how bad this was and how bad this team were, because it is really funny. Max, in addition to your points about the historical failure of this England side, I had a look at results just at Lords, and I think you can say with some confidence that this is in the top 2 worst ever performances batting last, and that they have played 141 tests at Lords. Yeah. I think
is Ireland the other one?
No, right. So, sorry, not batting on the 5th day. Batting on the last day. So there are 4 or 5 teams that have managed to screw the pooch worse than England in a 4th innings at Lords. But they've been bowled out on like day 3 and 4 on pitches where it was a bomb site, obviously. So I think South Africa bowled out for 100, chasing 400 last year, for example. It was a classic case. In 2020 even. I think it was that for example is a classic case of a side that just want to get on the plane home. Really, they're not actually interested in winning the cricket match. England blew one in the Ashes and Ireland, and then there's a match from 1888 where there were 4 ball overs, and England I think managed to fuck that one up too. It's a little bit of a subjective call. It's hard to say this is absolutely the dumbest, worst batting performance I've ever seen or anyone has ever seen.
It's just to provide a bit of context, isn't it? To say it is well up there.
It is genuine. You could make a really compelling case that on the 16th of August 2021, that is the worst that anyone has ever batted, ever. You'd probably be wrong. But you could put it in the IMDb list of 100 best movie quotes. You could say the 16th of August 2021, that was crap.
Well, should we
using expected average just to kick off the innings? So we might as well just go through it as it happened. The India Openers did bowl a really good spell. The ball moved around a lot. CricViz used their expected average stat, which I don't think really works, but we're going to use it here anyway. They said after, I think it was the first 7 overs, India had bowled a spell that had an expected average of 17. England were 2 wickets down for 1 run, Ross. So they have taken a bad situation and amplified that. One
was
Sibley
awful.
and Burns.
One was that Burns getting out was horrendous. What was he doing? Just clip it. You're a left-hander. You're good off your legs. He's bowled you on your thigh pad. Just knock it away for a boundary. And he's squared himself up and leading edge to cover. He looked at the pitch like, the pitch is just absolutely dummy. No, mate. You've got your stupid fucking zinc in your eye and you've played a shit shot. Sibley was just beaten by a ball that he was not good enough to face. Like, there's no doubt about that. He got squared up. Shami bowled a really good delivery. And he walked. So it's just frustrating. I also thought there was actually some really good bowling throughout. I liked the role Siraj played. I said earlier that I liked his performance. I like the way Kohli uses him. And Jack, your point around Siraj being just like, I could be dropped for the next test match. I'm going to give it absolutely everything I have, every single kind of like 4 over spell I bowl, 5 over spell I bowl. I like that. And I want that fire. I want that aggression from my fast bowlers. England fans absolutely love it when Archer got revved up. Broad gets revved up. Stokes gets revved up. It is great
Anderson
to watch.
Himself says he bowls best when he's angry and hates the batsman.
Absolutely, and sometimes it comes off in a big way. And that he's got Siraj doing that. He's got the perfect foil in Ishant Sharma, who is just it delivers time and time again for India and bowled brilliantly. I thought it was really, really important in this Test match. I think he ended up with 6 wickets in the game, going at no runs whatsoever. And just the way he was used by Kohli, I thought was really good. And I can't actually criticise anything that India did here. I thought it was brilliant. And Jack, we talked about Bumrah, or Max, we talked about Bumrah at the start of the series. Like, is he going to deliver in England? He's delivered in a huge way, in an absolutely huge way. And nothing was clear around when he got Robinson out. Changed the tactic. Nothing was really working for them. He needed a breakthrough. Used his experience from T20 cricket and used how good he was. Came round the wicket, bumped him a couple of times, and then did it with an absolute perler of a slower ball. Like, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah, no, they bowled. I mean, there's no doubt that India bowled as well as they would have to have bowled to bowl a team out in 60 overs. The problem for England is that should not have been possible. Like, it's not.
I mean, I'll counter your slower ball by saying, if you're not trying to score any runs, how could you ever be out to a slower? Just what?
Man, have you seen the shot Ollie Robinson plays? Honestly, he might as well not have a bat in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. Yeah. I mean, there's some good balls in there. Don't get us wrong, but there's also some pretty tragic batting.
Sam
Bairstow and Hamid getting done on the inside. But I mean, Butler. England's last hope pushes a ball a yard wide of off stump. Yeah. What's he trying to do with that ball?
They do, but it's difficult. If you play nearly 100 balls in a Test match in that kind of condition, there's going to be a moment where you lapse. And I don't think you can sit and blame. You can't sit and blame Butler. You can't sit and blame Butler. He's a number 7 Test batsman batting at number 6, and I think he did it. I think Butler
than any other England player.
Yeah, I think Butler did the best job he possibly was capable of in that innings.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The problem is he's not a very good job, is it?
He's not. He's not supposed to be there because
I think a bunch of them probably did the best they could do.
Sam Curran, king pair in the game.
Well, this is it. I mean, this is it. We're talking about records here, yeah? What a fucking occasion to wheel out the first king pair in the history of Lord's cricket. What did I say earlier? 141 tests. You come in, at that point, it's 20 past 5. They have about an hour. All you have to do, if you're there 20 minutes later, Kohli probably wraps it up. Like,
just leave it. Leave the ball.
What a disaster. Sibley, I think Sibley's probably got a future in this side, but that's largely because there's not anyone else that they can turn to. Burns is slightly better than having, there's no one better to turn to.
Mark Stoneman scored 100 in the One Day Cup.
Should we
bring him back?
But he still managed to tie the record. I mean, like, we're talking about record breakers again. The record for most ducks in a calendar year by an Englishman. He's up there, I think, with Atherton and Butcher now. Well, and he's got tests to go. Like, I think he could set a mark that could last for years here. He's got a real opportunity to leave a legacy. Speaking of ducks in a calendar year, oh wait, hold on. So what did I say? Atherton and Butcher. There's another player, Johnny Bairstow. He's got 5 ducks in a calendar year. That was 2018. He's going to get away with all of this, despite averaging 29.5 for the series so far. Because
he's in every single test now until the end of the year.
He's England's second top scorer with 118 runs for the series. Do you want to go through? Let's just go through the top run scorers. We've got Joe Root, 386, Rahul, 244, Sharma, 152. Root has outscored the two. He's nearly got the same number of runs as the 2 best Indian players in this series. Yeah, you've got that much of an advantage. Your best player has eliminated the advantage that the other 2 teams' best players are giving them. Bairstow comes in at 118. Then it's Jadeja, Pant, Pujara, Mohammad Shami, Rahane, and we've got Burns on 67. 67 runs in 4 innings. Then we've got Butler, then Jasprit Bumrah, then Virat Kohli. I mean,
Bumrah's outscoring Kohli. That's a positive.
It's ludicrous. Hamid, I mean, everyone wants him to succeed, I think, don't we?
Yeah.
He's got a good narrative arc. I mean, as far as narrative arcs go, it'd be a great accomplishment if he came back into the side. But you have to ask.
Unfortunately, that's how England do most of their selection, isn't it? Narrative arcs.
Yeah, you have to ask.
Got to keep Test cricket interesting. That's the bit. ECB comms are actually doing the England selection.
Oh, I'm going to ask, why is he there though? What's he done that somebody else hasn't done that means he's there? He was out bowled middle stump on day two.
That was bad. Yeah.
On day two, and then he's cut in half in the second innings. He could have been out 4 times in the second innings, wasn't he? Dropped.
He was dropped on 4, I think, or dropped on 2.
Zach
Crawley, the reason he's there is because Zach Crawley was so bad over an extended period of time. What I found hilarious? We were there on Friday, and Zach Crawley walked round with Paul Collingwood to go to the cricket nets, and we'd walk past. 2 minutes later, you see Zach Crawley sprinting round the boundary and come back. He'd forgotten his batting gloves to go for a cricket net. Like, come on,
that's
mate.
That's the caliber of player we're dealing with. But on this Hamid point, I was looking at this. Like, I actually want to know, why have they selected him? So I had a look at his average in the Championship for the last 2 years in England's domestic cricket, 42.4. Now, that's okay. It's 18 runs fewer than I'm averaging in the North East London Cricket League, but it's all right. It's acceptable. But when you break it down though, and look at who he scored these runs against, he averages 29 against teams that finish in the top half of the league he's playing in, and 62 against the bottom half. So, that took me, I'm not joking here, 20 minutes of research this afternoon to find that out. Surely there's somebody in the England team, whose job it is to look slightly under the surface of the stat that they're being given that isn't even that good in the first place. 42.4 doesn't put you in the top 10 averages for the last 2 years. I don't even put you close. So why is he the candidate? And 2, when you look at who he's actually scored those runs against, he's pummeling like teams that only set up to play T20 cricket. Like they're like Derbyshire and Dan Weston's outfit, Leicestershire. Like they win 2 matches every year. They're awful teams. Why is he in the England team? Nobody can tell you. Compared him against Tom Abel. Lots of people say Tom Abel should be in the side. Lads, if Tom Abel walked into your bedrooms right now wearing a Tom Abel shirt, would you know who he was? Nope. No, but you can look at the data and you can look at the facts and you can see that his splits, his average over the last 2 years, 49.4. That's for people who are bad at maths, 7 runs better than Hamid. And again, that doesn't sound like much, but over a top 5, that's 35 more runs. If you had those splits, that's quite a lot.
And that, where does that put you in England's batters this series? Probably about 3rd, 4th.
You see what
he's also going to be good against spin, which England are notoriously bad at. Surely, he plays at Somerset.
He plays at Somerset, yeah. You segment the data, the same split. Top half, he averages 49. Bottom half averages 49.7. Not a stat padder, basically. He's somebody who looks like he might have some kind of game. We didn't pick him though, and these are the consequences. You make stupid decisions, and this is the theme of the podcast. You make stupid decisions off the field. You make stupid decisions on the field. You make stupid decisions when you're bowling, when you're batting, when you decide to go for a net, and you make a stupid decision because you didn't bring your fucking gloves. This is a team that just make a lot of stupid decisions.
And this is where it frustrates me, where people then turn around, like Michael Vaughan, like Kevin Peterson, then go, there's a fundamental issue with the county game. Oh, there's a fundamental issue with this. And they're just like spewing shit out into the media. And it's just like, just focus on what you're talking about there, Jack. Of some better decision making, some better leadership within the ECB. We are great. Well, we're good at white ball cricket. We have been great. And I think like we can even talk about selection there, where the selection is almost not quite optimal. Like T20 cricket, we've not got it quite right. But that thinking that's gone is there just hasn't really translated into the red ball game for nearly 7 years. It's a long time. 8 years. It's a long time for England to be really bad at red ball cricket.
I mean, I think you can make a reasonable case that at least three or four of the players that they picked for this match have got absolutely no evidence that supports their selection. I think we've done it with Hamid. I think you can do it with Bairstow. Even though he scored 118 runs at a rocking average of 29.5, why is he there? Does anyone really know? I think there are probably question marks around Moeen. There's question marks around Sam Curran. Why is Sam Curran there? Can't bat, can't bowl.
Well, I think
What do you need him
yeah,
for?
well, I mean, the thing with Sam Curran is like he's pretty useless if the ball's not swinging, and he's not going to bowl with the ball swinging because you've got Anderson
So
and
why have you got
Robinson or Broad, or so why are you going to pick him? Why pick him? He doesn't
They
even
might as
do.
well pick another
you know,
batter or
Yeah. I mean, he got Kohli out. And that was his only wicket of the series.
And anyone could do that.
Yeah.
He's not hit a century for 640 days. Like, who
But
cares?
who's counting?
yeah. Kohli has the same number of runs actually as Virat Kohli, as Bumrah. Sorry for this series. And probably Ross, you're right. At the moment, anybody could get him out. He might not even get in the England team, to be honest.
Well, Mark Wood's probably going to miss the next game, so that means Craig Overton's going to have a go at getting him out. So
right, yeah. I think we've got some questions. I think we have some questions about this debacle. Anything anyone wants to say before we go on to that, though?
no, I think we. Sorry, Max.
I'll say yes. I have one thing to say, and it's after talking about this, I need a stiff drink.
I think it's really good fun. I mean, I hope they win 4-0, India. It'd be so good. I mean, the thing is, the people who are watching this not from the UK, I think maybe don't understand how delusional a lot of England cricket fans are. The rage when England lost to New Zealand, the World Test champions, earlier this year, the rage that people had. They like called it. I mean, it's delusional is the word.
The only person who would get in New Zealand's batting lineup is Joe Root.
Yes,
without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. And you're probably only looking at Anderson who'd get in the bowling side.
Yeah.
But what I find hilarious is that like the ECB were just like, we need to cut some costs and we need to have more accountability in our team because we can then make some actions. Ed Smith must be laughing his absolute head off at the moment. Because they've not changed selection policy, have they? They've reverted even to a worse, more insular selection policy for Test cricket. Ed Smith must be like, I'm so glad I got rid of that position. So glad.
Right. A few of these we've covered. So we've talked a lot about Jimmy, I think, and the bouncer and no balls. We talked about that earlier in the test anyway. What is England's solution to 1-2-3? No half decent test side has such a poor top three and two at home. Should Root bat up the order? I don't think there is really a solution. I mean, like I was saying, if they're determined to not pick players that might solve the problem, then they're not going to solve the problem.
Mm.
That's the solution is pick players who might solve the problem. But there's another problem in the way of that, which is that they don't like picking players based on evidence. It's about, who's a good bloke.
Yeah, who do I like playing golf with?
Who do I like playing golf with? He did it in the World Cup 2019, didn't he? That's the sort of thing. Will Tom Abel? Someone actually asked, will Tom Abel be picked for the next match? No, they won't do that. That's way too far out of the box. Do you know who I think could come in? James Vince. I think James Vince could come in.
Yeah.
And there's someone else.
David Milan.
Darren Milan. I think both of them could come in. Don't know who for.
Gary Balance?
Spin the wheel. They're probably.
I would love it if Gary Balance is selected.
I mean, if you wanna go and look at the county championship averages over the last few years and who's like streets ahead, a couple of them are already in the squad. To be fair, Dom Sibley's been averaging like 60 odd and scoring tons of runs. That's why he's in the team, and he should be in the team based on that reason. Ollie Pope has averaged like 80 because he bats at the Oval and scores 300 runs.
He bats 6 at the Oval.
Yeah,
I'd average 40 batting 6 at the Oval.
So but if you're going to do it based on scoring piles of runs in the county championship, he can be in there. On top of the fact that he looks like he's good as well, so he ticks both boxes, isn't he? He's got the England box and our box. So
he'll be in.
And then another
is he out
person? He's back, but he's been playing in the One Day Cup and not doing very well.
Sorry, just lost, didn't they, tonight, Max?
Yeah, they did.
Ollie Pope got nil points.
Yeah, which is, I think,
perfect
what he got the other day as well, but never mind.
It's exactly what we need. Another guy who gets 0.
The other person who's like up there, like averaging 50 plus in county championship, is Gary Balance. Just saying.
Well,
Right.
I think
Gary
Balance-
Balance,
I think-
I've just got his stats up for Test cricket. Average of 37 with 4 Test centuries.
That's
Man, we've
better
gotta
than
get
the
Balance back
entire
in.
like top 7.
Yeah.
I do
Apart from Joe
think.
Root.
I do think in the last couple of years, Gary Balance has been a little bit further down the list. I want to see the big man back in as much as everyone else. Probably more than, to be honest.
Look, without Ben Stokes, the one thing this team lacks is balance.
Correct. Well, very well done. If you go on to Gary Balance's ESPN Cricket Info, he has got the most lost soul look in his eye, literally on the picture they've used. But anyway,
Yeah, he's not even. I don't think he's even in the top 50 runs for us this year. So maybe we don't go to Balance, but that again, it doesn't actually affect their decision making. So maybe we will see Gary Balance. They were from Big VJ and Naren. Chintan asks, should Mohammad Shami and or Jasprit Bumrah stroll into the current England side as specialist batsmen? Max,
Very funny.
so yes is the answer. I
Yeah,
think that
fuck
you're
it, why
looking
not?
for
Can't be
there.
any worse, can it? Give it a go.
Archie asks, this might be a bit of a stretch, but do you think England should have gone for the batting positive approach? Like changing the batting order and sending Butler and Bairstow in up top or Moen to open. Worst case scenario, they'd have Sibley and Burns at the bottom to defend since they can't score any runs anyway.
I'm actually a big fan of that approach, Archer. I think we should have gone out and just be like, do you know what? We're not going to win this defending, are we? Let's prove no one and just try to make it a little bit more enjoyable.
Could you imagine what certain commentators on Sky and the BBC would have said about that? It would have been worth it just for that, just to wind them up.
Yeah. True Bake, what's your take on the after lunch 9 balls in declaration by India? Was it a tactic or did Kohli want them to score more runs? And when will the podcast be available on YouTube? When you're listening to this, it will be available.
Yeah. I'm all in the mind. I thought it was quite funny.
Up. No,
It's dumb.
Yeah.
Look,
Utterly dumb. There's not a single good reason for doing it.
No,
I thought it was
true.
hilarious. How many people told you that Kohli not declaring was going to lead to them losing overs in the game? How many people just like Kohli's lost his mind?
Yeah, it was.
It was
It
funny.
cost them 4
Seriously,
overs.
it could have, like, it should have cost
If
Didn't
they'd
know,
been
did it?
playing a proper cricket team, it would
should
have.
have cost.
Yeah, didn't know, did it?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're playing banter era England. Has Hamid done anything to retain his place from Vinay, Max?
Do I need to answer that?
No, is a no the answer?
No, he hasn't, has he? But the thing is, you can't get rid of him after one. So, he's not done anything to retain his place, but he will retain his place.
Lads, I'm just thinking about Gary Balance again. Sorry, but the next test is where Headingley.
Oh,
He plays there every week.
Are we
It's not a
thinking
bad
maybe
shout.
we should just replace the entire batting lineup with whatever county plays at the ground we're playing?
Well, I've been saying for years.
against that.
Yeah, I've been saying for since we started this podcast, horses for courses, and maybe that means every county ground we play at. Oh, Trent Bridge, come on, Alex Hales, come on, Samit Patel, come on.
Time to wheel out Ricky Clark in his wheelchair at the Oval Test.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
so is there any more questions, Jack?
Yeah, Amar says we're trying to intimidate England. India doesn't work. In fact, it backfires. Didn't work for Australia. Didn't work for England. Won't work for anyone. When will teams learn that?
I mean,
Ross.
you did lose the World Test Championship final, didn't you? So
Yeah, well, to be fair though to New Zealand, they didn't try the intimidation approach at any point, did they? What they did, and this I think is where England and Australia got their strategy wrong, was they tried the being good at cricket approach. Dwell on that.
It's a bit left field for me. That
Yeah. It's a lot harder, to be fair, than just shouting "fuck you" or "see you at the Gabba Ash" or I don't know, we're going to bounce you out on Monday morning to whoever, isn't it? It is
Yeah.
harder to do, to learn actual skills that are applicable in the game that you're being paid to play.
and can you imagine the chat as well? So like you've got like Kane Williams would be like, "Oh, Cody, would you like to come over for a cup of tea after this game as we're playing in England?" "Oh, Pajar, you're so good at cricket. Can you teach me one of those shots?" "Oh,
Yeah.
well, we played earlier this year, and he's obviously got the same standard." But do you remember that guy, Jack, who came out and like didn't walk, snicked one off you, didn't walk, wasn't given out?
Yeah.
And then instead of us going, "You're a dickhead," we were just like, "You are the best player we have ever seen," and it worked. So maybe there's
It
a thing
did.
to this. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
thing to this.
Yeah. Kyle Jameson, can't wait to see you at RCB, Virat. we're going to win the cup this year, pal.
The anti-sledge. It's the future.
Yeah. I always.
I
think
reckon
that's the
Mark
way
Wood
to
would
go.
be really good at that.
When people do get a bit shouty, it's always best just make them feel like they're stupid.
Blow
Don't
them a
get
kiss or something.
involved. Yeah. Anyway, lads, I think we've done this justice.
Mhm.
We've talked for almost as long as England batted. Actually, isn't that long. Ross, messages for the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, you should like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and follow us on whichever podcast platform you're on. And leave us some comments, leave us some reviews. If you leave us a review on Apple, we will read it out.
Cool. I don't know when this is going to go. It might go up tomorrow morning. It might go up this evening. It depends on how quick this process is. I'm looking forward to people watching it, though. Thanks very much. We maybe do some 100 stuff later this week.
Yeah, I'm going to the Eliminator actually on Friday.
Oh, yeah, cool. So we should do a little preview of that before you go, get you up to speed. It's been quite good. Last few couple of games today, or today and tomorrow, isn't it? Before the Eliminator. We'll talk. We'll do a little preview. Cheerio.
Thanks for watching.